year is now 2014. It has been 9 years since Mavuno Church was planted. And after oscillating between different venues, it's now time for the Mavuno movement of churches to finally settle into its own headquarters. A 20-acre piece of land has been identified on the outskirts of Nairobi, one of East Africa's largest cities. And after months of fundraising, enough resources have become available to not only allow for a deposit to be placed on the land, but for the movement headquarters to start the process of relocating. But what was the relocation experience like? And was there enough resource available to the Mavuno movement to pull this off? Once again, we go back to the senior pastor, Muredi Wanjau, to hear his take on the relocation process.
So moving to Hillcity, it was an exciting adventure. I mean, it involved the whole congregation. It was very exciting to be in that process. It was also a huge challenge because we had to raise $3.5 million. And part of the reason is because $2 million of that was to purchase the land, and then 1.5 was to help develop it so it was habitable. It was this big piece of land. And the crazy thing is that people in Mavuno actually, by faith, pledged even more than that. I think it was 3.57 million that actually eventually was pledged. And faithfully, every weekend, every month, people brought in their resources. I mean, people took such huge sacrifices. It was astounding even to me. And it was clear that God was very, very much behind this. And because of the urgency of the move, as we were looking at moving and we felt there was so much pressure from the landlord on the back end, there was also just a desire that we would finally move into our own property. Eventually we felt we needed to take a mortgage facility for the balance that we're not yet raised. And we said that we need to take this one because we didn't want to get to a place where we're caught flat-footed on this other side. And so we took a facility of $1.5 million and with the whole intention that our pledges would help us to cover that. And we moved to Hillcity. And I can tell you, I mean, it was a great, I remember the first service there, it was just, look what the Lord has done. It was a powerful, powerful time. But here's what began to happen. One of the things we hadn't counted on was just the spiritual opposition in that area. You know, that area had been known to just be a tough spiritual area. And we didn't even know this as we moved in. And we found there was so much opposition. I remember people would come to church and they would just have a headache. I mean, you just feel sick, and it was inexplicable. Would have dust storms that would roll across the church in the middle of a service. I remember people would just feel just unwell and go home just feeling like they were just not lifted up. They just felt unwell. And there was an attack, not just on our leadership, our staff members, but our congregation as well. And in the process, many people stopped coming to church. And as the leaders, we weren't equipped at that point to even help them deal with what we were experiencing. And so you can imagine you're at the place where you've got this, at the place where you want to pay off this loan very quickly. That was the plan. But then we weren't able to because even our numbers had gone down. Horizontally, even our financial might at that point had gone down. And so we resulted in just paying off our mortgage regularly, every month, as we've been doing faithfully since at the time. But you know, here's the thing I want to say. As difficult as that settling was, I'm really excited about it when I think back, because it was a time we began to understand spiritual warfare, and it really grew our spiritual muscles in ways that I believe are going to be extremely helpful as we as God's people step out across the world to take territory for our King Jesus.
3 years before Mavuno moved its headquarters to the Hillcity area in Kenya, Mavuno gave birth to its first European campus, Mavuno Church Berlin. Pastor Daniel Flechsig planted the campus in 2011 and was present when Mavuno began to speak about owning a headquarters. He has since been back to visit the headquarters many times, and we wanted to hear the unique perspective that a European church planter from Mavuno would bring to this conversation.
I had the unique opportunity to serve at Mavuno when its headquarters was still at Bellevue. However, in 2011 we left the community there and headed for Berlin, where together with my wife Nancy we have been the pastors of Mavuno Berlin ever since. While we have been pretty occupied in Europe with overseeing the church, I have been extremely impressed to see how the headquarters has taken shape. I remember this time I came to Hillcity, it was in January 15, my first visit. Today when I visit the place, it is extremely different. From a lonely place, far away from other developed structures, now it is in the midst of a city that has grown there with roads, apartments, shops. It's beautiful. the landscaping that has been done, the trees, the plants. It is not that dry and harsh place anymore. It's much greener, it's just beautiful. And I'm excited at the prospect of us completing the depth at Hillcity, because I see the opportunity for impact across nations and even continents. When I look at Europe today, I am saddened by the state of Christianity. Europe was once the center of Christian mission and had incredibly strong Christian heritage. Today, when you look across Europe, what I see is the need for more churches, for stronger, for healthier churches, for an increased Christian testimony, for awakening. As long as Mavuno still has debt on its headquarters, we will always be held back from impacting Europe and bringing the change that this continent needs. I see Hillcity as a place from where many world changes will be sent out and begin to impact many European nations. With that said, I want to encourage you. If you have not considered making a pledge towards our Free the Future initiative, this is the time to do it.